Have you ever felt like your partner may be interacting with his kids out of guilt or maybe even shame because of the breakup of the family? Do you feel he might be compensating for not being with his kids 24/7 by being a Disney dad? On today's podcast, I'll be talking with Tracy Poisner, a stepmom of 14 years, an alternative healthcare professional, and a fellow podcaster of her own weekly Essential Stepmom show, who will be sharing her perspective on why dads behave the way they do. Hi, I'm Claudette Chenevert, wife, mom, stepmom, and now grandmom. When I first became a stepmother 30 plus years ago, I had no idea how hard being a stepmom was going to be. When I first became a stepmother 30 plus years ago, I had no idea how hard being a stepmom was going to be. I had no one to turn to, ask for help or advice. I was alone on my journey. And remember, back then, there was no such thing as Facebook, Instagram, or even Google to ask questions like, what's my role as a stepmom? Who comes first, my partner or the kids? Is it okay to not like my stepkids? How do I deal with a challenging ex? I feel so much like an outsider in my own home. What can I do? And although we now have access to a lot of information online, let me say, not all of it is helpful or wise. Welcome to my podcast, where I share my best tips and advice along with moments of wisdom on what you can do to build and create stronger and healthier stepfamilies, one step at a time. So let's get started. Hey, welcome, Tracy. I'm so excited that you and I are finally talking with one another. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
Excellent. So today, Tracy and I, we're going to talk about a topic that I know a lot of stepmoms, at least in my community and probably in your community also, Tracy, about dads not stepping up or dads being the Disney dad or feeling guilty about their role in the relationship with their kids. And, you know, this is such a big topic and it's an important topic, especially with Father's Day coming up, and not only Father's Day, but at any point. I mean, I see dads not living up to what their roles are. So I'd love for you and I to have a conversation, Tracy, about the guilty dad and the Disney dad. So tell me, I want to hear from you. Tell me what a guilty dad looks like or a Disney dad looks like. Tell us a little bit about some of the things they do that we could call them guilty dads.
Well, you know, for sure, they mostly probably don't feel like a guilty dad or a Disney dad. No, I think we have to make a difference between like guilty parenting and permissive parenting, because permissive parenting is a thing. It's a style. It's a philosophy of parenting where maybe you believe in kind of going with the flow and letting kids self-direct and to experience the natural consequences of what they do without your interference. And it might have to do with not limiting things like screen time or setting bedtime or allowing teens the freedom to make their own mistakes. That could be a permissive style of parenting. That's not the same as dads who feel guilty about not being consistent or an everyday part of their child's life. Maybe they even feel responsible for having created a wound that they can never repair, for being part of destroying this child's family and the cohesiveness of their existence. Some dads feel guilty that they just couldn't deal with their ex anymore, or that they feel guilty that maybe they didn't try hard enough, or maybe that they knew it was wrong from the beginning and that they had a child with this person anyway, or that they didn't fight hard enough for them in court to get more time. There are a lot of legitimate reasons for parents to feel guilty. And let's be clear, there are guilty mom moms out there too. This is not something that's restricted to dads. It's a bit of a stereotype to say guilty dads, but your audience and my audience are the stepmoms, right? So
Yeah.
the person in your household who is the guilty parent is just by definition of who's listening to this, the dad.
Yeah.
So we can talk about guilty dads, but essentially it's a problem when the parenting gets all mixed up with the idea of repaying a debt or a kind of debt that can never be paid off. And it prevents the dad from offering the very things that the child needs most from him and that he could be giving. If he could step out of that paradigm and understand that giving the best of himself doesn't involve being a bad guy at all,
Yeah.
really.
I love, yeah, and I love what you just shared about, first of all, it's not just dads that feel guilty, moms feel guilty as well, right? For the purpose of our conversation and our audience, we're focusing on dads here. And I do want us to be clear, it's not just dads, moms too. So Tracy, you were talking about that, dads have a good reason for feeling guilty, right? It doesn't happen out of the blue where people feel guilty. And I know you have some examples to share with us. And what does that look like? Why would we feel guilty about the breakup, if you wish, of our previous relationship, or putting the kids through a second relationship, or being separated from their other parent?
Well, I mean, it's really true that when parents separate and the family is divided, it is a terrible thing for the kids. And as much as we would like to think, well, I'm moving on, you move on too, you're moving on in a completely different way. Nobody gets to divorce their mother or their father, or at least you're going to spend your whole adult life in therapy trying to do that, right? It's not simple. And my husband definitely feels guilty. I know that he talks about it often, for having put his kids in a situation where they are torn between two parents who see the world in such different ways and who felt about child raising such like polar opposites of how they believed in raising children. And that the divorce set up a situation where they were, you just can't imagine more opposite philosophies in the household, and how hard that could be for kids to deal with that. How they began to feel responsible for their mother in the absence of their dad to take care of her, that it really, fell to them in a way that's not at all healthy, but it's very normal in divorce situations that the kids feel responsible for one or even both of the parents. And then to say, well, as a stepmom, to say, well, get it through your head, your dad has moved on and he's happy now, so let go of that. It doesn't work that way. It's a completely different situation for them, a totally different life situation. They can be happy for dad that he's happy, but their life is still not so nice when they're having to deal with both parents forever who don't like each other or who talk bad about each other. It really is a dreadful life situation. And yes, the dads feel guilty if they're self-aware at all. They feel guilty about putting their beloved children through that awful life experience that seemingly never ends.
And that's so interesting, Tracy, because my son's father, never felt guilty about anything. So for me, this is a very interesting conversation, because if I look at my son's dad, he says, well, you take care of him, you deal with it. I don't feel sorry or guilty for anything, which sort of makes the relationship for my son with my husband, his stepdad, really challenging, because my son would love a relationship with his dad.
Right.
But his dad's like, yeah, it's good. It's not, it doesn't matter. But for when it comes with my husband, he's trying to build a relationship with my son, and my son is like, no, I want my dad.
Right.
And so I think, a lot of times people forget that dads are really important in the lives of our kids, not just when they're little, but when they're adults as well, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'd like for you to share a little bit more about the importance that fathers are to our kids' lives, and that when dads don't play their role, what are some of the consequences we could see for dad not being a dad?
Well, again, it depends what you mean about not being a dad, because the dad thinks he's being a dad when he is focusing on the positive aspects about he is being the dad who takes them places and does things with them and buys them things and has wonderful experiences with them. When he has trouble is when it is about saying no or setting limits or delivering consequences of bad behavior. And the problem is that, well, something that I've learned in my study, because my career is in alternative medicine, and I've been studying and practicing homeopathic medicine for about 25 years. So there's a concept that one of my teachers has shared that I think is really important, that has to do with the father function, that there's a mother function and a father function. And the father function can be fulfilled by a woman, by the mother, but it doesn't have to do with feminine or masculine or with the actual person, but a kind of archetypal function of father versus mother. And mother has to do with love and closeness and home and that kind of the security of love. And father has to do with going out in the world and charisma and ambition and curiosity and getting away from the family and moving out into the world, and the security of that, the self-confidence piece. Those things are part of the job of the father function. And once again, lots of mothers do the father function and vice versa. In an ideal situation, both parents are doing both things. But in this context, the father has to be providing some security that has to do with what's safe and not safe about going out into the world. And kids are looking for, people say this all the time, that kids are looking for boundaries. They're looking for limits. That's why they push the limits, and there's one author I like very much, Richard Templar, who wrote a book called The Rules of Parenting. That's from England, and I stumbled on it somewhere, and I just love it. But one of the things that he says, I hope I'm paraphrasing correctly, is that children test limits not to try to extend them, but to make sure that they haven't changed. And I think that dads don't understand that saying no is so important. They need to know that you can handle them, that you can contain them, that they have the safety of knowing that they can try things and that you're going to put your arms around and protect them from doing something that's actually not good for them. And they need repeated experiences of that all the time so that little by little they feel safe to try things. And if you don't ever give them the experience of saying, now I have to say no because you're precious to me and I won't let anything bad happen to you. I won't even allow you to hurt yourself in this way. They need to hear that, to trust you and to feel that, like, that's where you're giving the value of being a dad. And if you're just another nice guy who does nice things and has nice experiences with them, you can be an uncle, you can be a Boy Scout leader, you can be a teacher, you can be the dad of the next door guy, all of whom you can have great relationships with, but that's not what we're wired for desiring from our dad.
I love this. And you brought some really important points that I just want to touch a little bit on, is that a father role doesn't mean it has to be a masculine or a feminine, right? We see same-sex relationship, and even in same-sex relationship, we have one of the women or one of the partners fulfilling the feminine motherly role, and then you have another partner fulfilling the fatherly role.
Yeah, I would say even more, it's true that both partners fulfill both the roles. Like, I'll be clear, my husband in his first marriage was the one who did all of the cooking and all of the laundry and all of the diapers and all of the bath time. So he did a lot of what we would call the pink jobs, as opposed to the blue jobs. He did those too, but he's the cook and bottle washer. And I'm also, in our family, I'm somebody who gives out a lot of life advice. So it's completely, there's a lot of overlap. There's no question that the father function is performed by both people. But I think it's important for dads especially to connect more with the part of themselves that their kids need to see. And they want to back away from the kind of setting limits or saying, okay, look, now it's bedtime. I know you don't want to go, but I'm going to say it's happening now because this is good. It's hard to do those things. You don't want to be in conflict during your short weekend together. And we went through this. My stepkids lived really far away. It was a 3-hour drive in each direction. So for dad to drive 3 hours to pick them up and go in the car and come back, like, it was a major ordeal, and it didn't happen that often. So when they would be with us, he really didn't want to spend his time in conflict with them. And it's totally understandable, but he found ways to do that. And that's what I like to share.
Good. So tell us, what are some of the ways that a dad can be in a dad role or a fatherly role without sacrificing or compromising the relationship with his kids, especially if they come only on weekends?
Well, I think that dads mostly need to know that the really important things that you need to telegraph to your kids is that you are there ensuring their safety, that you are able to take care of them. And I don't mean just like financially or providing a roof over their head or, keeping them from running in the road, but that you're telegraphing with your actions that you are with them as they go out into the world, being brave and courageous and doing new things, but you are there for their safety. You're going to make sure that they're being safe. And, some days if you just manage to keep your kids safe until the end of the day, it's a good parenting day. You don't need to do more than that. So that's about helping them build an inner sense of security. But the other part is guiding your child to turn into the kind of adult that you want them to be. And that has to do with nailing down your values. You have to know what your goal is. And I don't know, the author Brené Brown, who I really love, she suggests that you should force yourself to choose 2 founding principles for your family or for your business or whatever it is. But just 2 founding principles, 2 values from all the values that there might be that are most important for you, because that makes it really simple to keep those things in front of you all the time so that you're not sort of feeling random about picking and choosing your battles, essentially. You have to be able to pick your battles in a meaningful way, not just what you have energy to deal with right now or not, but what's important and what's not so important, according to you and not anybody else.
Anything else that you feel would be helpful to those dads that are there, or to the stepmoms who want to support their partner in being better dads?
Well, I think it's all about demonstrating your integrity to your kids. And if you look at it that way, it's not about showing the dark side of yourself, how angry you could get when they don't do what they're supposed to do. It's showing the best part of yourself. You're the best guy. You're not a bad guy. You're a superhero of integrity, and dads really are that. And I think maybe a lot of them don't have the confidence to step into that and say, I am the most important person in this child's life, and I'm going to show them who I am. And really the way to do that is so simple. You just have to do what you say you're going to do. And you need to create a million little opportunities for yourself to do what you say you're going to do. It's as simple as saying, after supper tonight, we're going to go for a bike ride, and then doing it. Or saying, if you help clean up after supper, we're going to read an extra story at bedtime tonight, and then you do it. You start announcing what's coming and following through. And it's not about bad things, it's about good things. You're just laying a groundwork of showing that you're somebody who does what you say you're going to do. And then you don't ever threaten punishments that are not what you plan to do, because that's another bad thing that we just, you get really angry and you say, if you don't stop doing that, I'm going to take this away. And then of course, when the time comes, you don't really want to take the thing away. So you have to make sure that you're not ever making a consequence that's not something that you want to do. The consequence can be minuscule. It just has to get delivered. So I'll give you an example. My husband, when the kids were really little, they were 3 very wild kids and they fought with each other a lot. They still sometimes do. And as it was approaching Christmas, the mom would get really upset and she'd say, if you guys don't stop fighting, you're not getting any presents on Christmas. And he would say, well, that's ridiculous. You're not going to do that. Like, you're just going to cave. So he would say, every time I have to stop you from fighting, I'm going to add 15 minutes to how long you have to wait to open your presents in Christmas. Wow. And every time he would catch them fighting, he'd say, that's another 15 minutes. Now it's half an hour. And later on he would say, I told you, now it's 45 minutes. And he said they sat for a whole hour in front of the Christmas tree waiting to open presents. And they remember it. They still talk about it. But right, it's something a little bit, it's not funny, but it's light. It's lighthearted. It doesn't have to be something terrible.
Or shattering or like.
If you cooperate, you get 2 scoops of ice cream after supper. If you don't cooperate, you get only 1 scoop of ice cream. Like something tiny, but that you feel comfortable with following through. Like, we're going to play checkers together when I get home from work if you've done all your homework. And if it doesn't happen, tonight we can't play because you didn't do that. We're going to try again tomorrow. I would love to play with you tomorrow. Let's see if it goes better tomorrow. Or that you have to wait 15 minutes before we do this because you weren't helpful, or whatever it is. But the tiniest little consequences that you can possibly think of, as long as you follow through and do what you say you're going to do.
So from what I'm hearing you say, Tracy, is really the key in overcoming or turning around the guilty dad parenting style is really following through with what you say, and having appropriate consequences, not punishments, but find ways to take away something or to give something if they did what you agreed upon, rather than taking away stuff you won't do. And so that shows the kids, wow, dad really means what he says. He's there for us. He loves us enough to do what he said he'd do. And he's stepping up to protecting us and making sure we're safe and secure.
Well, I think oftentimes the stepmom and the dad are having these conversations and trying to establish rules and consequences together. And it all sounds very reasonable when the adults are planning something, but when the time comes, the dad is not comfortable with applying the consequence that he agreed to do. And I think sometimes the stepmoms feel that's not a big enough punishment for what just happened. Like, he should be grounded. He should have his iPad taken away. He should not get to, why does he get to do that? And I think that it's really important for the dads to spend some time creatively thinking about what would they feel okay with as a punishment. And it is actually a great idea to use family meetings as an opportunity to set, rules and consequences together, and to ask the kids, what do you think should happen how much homework do you think you should have to do? What should happen if you don't do that amount? Or what do you think your chore should be? And what happens if you don't do it? And it almost doesn't matter what they pick, because it's not about the punishment. It's about the follow through.
Yes.
So it's just a new way of looking at it, that it's not the degree of punishment. And I think that stepmoms have to buy into this, because everybody is affected. Everybody is driven by unconscious memories of how they were raised. And there's this idea that it's not fair that I got my mouth washed out with soap when I said a swear word, and now you don't have that happening to you when you say why are you allowed to just have somebody say no, no, no when I had this terrible punishment or whatever. We're all driven by the way in which we were raised. And we have an inner feeling that it's the only way, because we want to validate the way our parents raised us, and to know that it meant that they loved us, what they did. And we have to understand that there are many, many, many ways to raise children into good adults. And that what I think is important, and this is just my observation, and I see it happening in the families that I work with, the important thing is the consistency and the showing the integrity to say, I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. And it's not about how severe the punishment is or that kind of reaction.
Yeah. So I love our conversation, and I'm sure we could talk about this like for many, many more minutes, even hours. But I would love for my listeners to be able to connect with you and to enjoy maybe even deeper conversations about this topic. So where can people reach you, and what is it that you could help them or offer them that they could continue this conversation with you?
Well, my website is essentialstepmom.com, and anybody is welcome to email me anytime at info@essentialstepmom.com. And I think I sent you a link for a little download that I have, that 3 Secrets of Successful Stepmoms. It's just the 3 biggest tips that I can give off the top of my head for stepmoms to better understand their role and how to be walking in the right direction towards success in that kind of a family.
And I just want to say, where can they find you on social media? And if so, what are some of the places they can find you on social media?
So on Facebook, the Facebook page is called Essential Stepmom. And I have a Facebook group that has a different name, of course, just to make it difficult. It's called The Spectacular Stepmom. The Spectacular Stepmom. We're just under 1,000 women there now. And I have to say, I love that group. There's a very special culture in my Facebook group. I say that I guard it like a pit bull with lipstick. I really guard the culture of respect in that group. And the women really do speak to each other very respectfully and with compassion, and they share things that work for them, and they help other women to not feel alone in their struggles without a lot of bashing and slagging, because I just don't tolerate that. So there's really none of that. And so that makes it a nice place to be. It's nice for me to be there. I wanted a place that I wanted to hang out, to be honest. And I don't like all that negative stuff. So that's what we do. And I have a weekly podcast called Essential Stepmom that you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I talk about this kind of stuff. And we'll have you on there too, because I can't wait to talk to you.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you, Tracy. Again, this is Tracy Poisoner, and you can find her at essentialstepmom.com. And please look at the show notes for links to her 3 Secrets to Successful Stepmom. If you have any comments or would like to talk more about the guilty dad and ways to support your partner in dealing with his guilty feelings, or if you're a dad and you feel you are struggling and you're wondering if you're someone who is going through the guilty syndrome, dad, reach out to either Tracy or myself, and we'd love to talk with you and help you as much as we can. Well, thank you so much. And
You're very welcome.
see you next time.